here's the World Data Bank. Notice it's data.worldbank.org. The World Data Bank is awesome. It has tons and tons of data, but it can be kind of a pain to use to get usable data for this project. So I'm going to kind of go over what you'll need to do in order to get data. So I'm going to click Browse by Indicator. That's right here. And this allows me to just view all of the data that this website has on every country. Some of them will not have data for a lot of the countries, so you'll need to just kind of click around until you find something that does have a lot of data. Here is CO2 emission, metric tons per capita. So it gives you this is world data. We don't want this. But down here I get, so 2014 looks like the most recent year we got data from this. And I have every country. But what I want is, you wouldn't want to go in and like open a Google Sheet and copy each one of these. That would take forever. So what we can do though is, so I went to just 2014 and then I'm going to download the Excel file. Yours is going to, on a Chromebook, it'll pop up in Google Sheets. It's going to have all the same functions. So I'm just going to open up the Excel file. Any day now. There it is. Now for some odd reason, when you open it, it automatically puts on this third sheet, which isn't anything useful. What you want is not the second sheet, but the first sheet. And now I have every country's CO2 emissions going back to 1960, which is way more than I need. In fact, all I need from this Google Sheet is, so I'm scrolling to the right, I just want this most recent year. I'm going to delete everything before 2009, and you'll see why in a minute. So I need this column, don't need any of these other ones until 2009-ish. So if you right click or double click, then we can delete all of those rows. Great. Now I'm going to save this and minimize it for a minute. So this is, let's hide these two. So right now I have a country and its CO2 output. In the units are important here. What's the units? Metric tons per capita. So we would want to label this CO2 metric tons per capita. And this is 2014. And I didn't get data for those years. Okay, so I need some sort of thing to compare this data set with. So just this by itself, I need two variables to do a scatter plot. So I'm going to go back over to the World Data Bank and just hit back. And we're going to find some sort of thing that I want to compare it to. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let's pick literacy rate. So literacy rate, it looks like I have data for most countries. So it looks like I'm missing a lot of data. So I don't have nearly as much data for literacy rate as I did for CO2 emissions, so I'm going to pick a different data set. GDP growth, that should have a lot of data. Great. So, just like we did the last one, I'm going to download this Excel file. Okay, so once again, it opens it with the most useless sheet. So I'm going to scroll over to the data sheet right here. And once again, I don't need most of this data. So when I did CO2 metric tons, I used 2014. So I'm going to do the same thing for this data. I'm going to delete everything that isn't 2014. So all of this we want to delete. And in fact, I don't need this stuff either. Okay, so here's the annoying part. So some of these things we don't have data for. So like the country of Aruba didn't report this one's GDP growth percentage. So it appears the country of Aruba did not report that. So what we have to do is go in and delete any country where we don't have both data points. But it's not that hard to do. So I'm going to copy these two. Copy. And I'm going to paste them over in my other sheet. All right, so I've got them so that they line up, right? So I have Aruba. I don't have a data value for their GDP growth. So I'm going to click on row 5 and then right-click and delete the row. Because if I don't have both data points, I can't use the data. Now, we have American Samoa. Again, no data, so we should delete it. And the next blank one is Bermuda. No data. We're going to delete it. So you have to do that going through the whole sheet. It seems annoying, but it would only take about, 5 minutes to get through the whole thing. But then eventually you'll have, and then you could delete the extra. It's helpful to keep this in here, so I make sure that I'm deleting the right. So Channel Islands, delete, so we don't want to get off track here. But they should line up all the way to the bottom, and they do. Zimbabwe. But once we have all our blanks deleted, then we'll have two. We could delete this one if we had all our blanks deleted. And then we would have two perfect columns of data, and we could go forth and make our regression graphs, just like I showed you in the Google Sheets video. Notice this is going to be, if I try to copy this and put it in Desmos, it's going to be too much data for Desmos to handle. I can show you as proof. It also has blanks right now. Yeah, so see how it didn't, like it will graph what it has, but the last one it was able to graph was 8.888, which was not the same as the last data value that I had here. So it stopped somewhere around 50. So we don't want to use Desmos if we have this much data. Yeah, right at 48. Okay. Yeah, so that's the quick and dirty on using the World Data Bank. What you'll need to do if you're getting your regression stuff off the World Data Bank is it's going to be a lot more helpful for you if you pick data that you think is interesting. So really look at these things, read about what these indicators are, and then see if you can come up with some sort of conjecture or reason that you think this would correlate with something else, right? So that's going to make your project a lot more meaningful to you, is if you really care about this data. It's going to make it a lot easier to write your paper at the end.